So here's a little update on the 100-day project that I began 2.5 months ago or so. Just kind of letting you know where I am in the process. So when I began the process or the project, I really did not have any idea of where I was going to go. All I knew is that each day I was going to make a unwearable ring, a ring that you could not fit on your finger, which kind of reflected my frustration with the state of affairs in the country and in the world. I was frustrated, angry, helpless, pretty much pissed off at the government, president, and just felt that the country and world was really going in a horrible direction. So I started out making these rings as kind of social commentary, to kind of vent my anger and kind of process the things that were happening almost daily, really. But then it evolved after I kind of worked through some stuff in my own mind, and it evolved into kind of play and moved on to some kind of creative questions. So here are some designs that have been cast, which are some of the first designs that I made in my 100-day project. And it started out mostly with social commentary. Of course, beginning with COVID, a COVID unwearable ring here, CO2, global warming. Here's when Donald Trump got COVID, the +1 ring. Here's a Mike Pence ring when the fly landed on his head in the debate. Here's Donald Trump, how much he's paid in federal taxes for the last few years, $0. So it started out being just really angry and frustrated and helpless. And then it started to kind of, all right, if I'm going to make unwearable rings because of 2020, then I can literally make torture rings, like sharp points. And this one right here is going to hold poison ivy. It's got a little groove in there that these little fingers will bend over and actually hold poison ivy. Almost none of these are finished, by the way. They've been cast, but they aren't finished, so they're works in progress. And then just really playing around with design, just trying to make interesting looking structures that you can't put on your finger. And just kind of playful things that would be fun, but you can't get your finger in them. Unwearable designs. So the latest batch of rings that were cast recently are here. These obviously haven't even been tumbled yet, so they're just fresh out of the casting process. So again, just kind of playing around with different ideas, different concepts, a lot of play, like I said, super important part of the creative process. So just visually looking interesting rings and kind of moving away from social commentary. Here's my gas symbol on empty. I ran out of gas for the first time in my life in my truck. I think my brain was just so preoccupied with other things. So I made an unwearable ring for just commentary on my own life. Interesting, just visually interesting pieces. But so then coming out of that play, I made this ring here, which is, it's like a diamond form in there and a prong setting, a traditional prong setting, except the setting is on the inside of the ring. So that's the unwearable component of it. You can't fit it into your finger in there. But it got me thinking, what would happen if I were to start to think about kind of traditional gems and stone settings in a design, but because it's unwearable, what would the inside look like? So if you didn't have to put your finger in there and you weren't limited by that, what would the inside of it be like? Almost like an iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is up here, but so much of it is underwater and you don't know what's there. So I kind of got thinking, here I made a signet ring. Again, these are fresh out of casting. They haven't been cleaned up at all, but a traditional signet ring here that will be finished. But then what would be underneath it? If you couldn't see what was underneath that ring on someone's finger, what might the design look like underneath? So it kind of got me thinking to start thinking about that. So then I came up with this ring here, which hasn't been cast yet. This is a wax now, with some kind of gem or stone cluster on the top. And it's like a class ring, class of 2020. It has kind of a carrot base, so I think a play on words, you know, carrots with a kind of carrot on the inside, and playing around with these kind of unusual kind of mechanical shapes here. So you have this kind of traditional ring shape here, and you know, with some kind of element or design on top that has some kind of setting, the traditional design, like say a diamond or a stone of some kind, sitting up here with some kind of setting, prong setting perhaps, like this. What would, you know, if you were to continue that design, as I said, if you weren't limited by just the top, what's above the ring, what if you could use this space down in here to be part of that design? What would come down in here? What would you put in here that could extend the design down below? It's this whole untapped space. Just conceptually, what would be in this space? Okay, so I have 25 days remaining, and how do I want to spend those 25 days on this project? And I really like the idea of what would be on the inside of a ring, an unwearable ring, but what would be below the surface of the element. So I went on eBay and I looked for traditional wax rings, waxes, and didn't know what I would come up with, but I found this. I guess there's quite a few of these here, but I found a place where for $25 I could get 50 wax rings of kind of traditional design. So like you would set stones in, you know, in these pieces here. Some of them are actually pretty cool looking. There's some pretty cool looking, like these squiggly pieces right here. Anyway, so my idea is to use these as a starting point, like to use this as a starting point, and then start to play around with what can I do underneath or inside, or how can I extend the design down into this forbidden space where the finger has always been king. So that's where I think I'm going to spend the next 25 or so days on this project and see where that takes me. So kind of looking ahead as far as actually finishing the collection, I think about a third of the collection is not worth finishing. The other 2/3 I will probably work on over the winter and ultimately end up going on the website for sale at probably as pendants for necklaces. I think many of these will look pretty cool as pendants.